So let's do the other way to do some shading, which would be stippling. Let me show you how to do that on the lobster claw. This is kind of like a stippled effect that I produced for this lobster claw, and I think it looks really good. I think the stippling is the best choice for the lobster claw as opposed to the cross hatching, at least in terms of like the most dominant shading effect. Because with the stipples here, you're really it's contributing to the texture and even also the smoothness of the lobster claw. So what you're going to see, what you're going to start to notice is as you do different techniques, they contribute in different ways to the the feeling of what you're drawing. And stipples contribute to making things very, very smooth. Whereas lines, doing lots of lines, creates kind of like a sharpness that if you're trying to draw smooth structures with lines, it can be very, very hard. Whereas if you're trying to draw smooth structures like a person's face with stipples or interior lobster claw, stipples can really be the correct choice. But you do have to be careful. So I'm going to show you how I produced these effects. So let me create a layer up top, and we have two options here. One option is to just take the pen and individually do stipples. Okay, so like the last one, we would have to previously decide, our first actual decision is, where's the light? Where is light? Okay, and if that is our decision, then my stipples would be, starting off in the same spots where I started my cross hatches. I would start them in the darkest regions, doing things like this. Okay, this is just classical stippling. Okay, and build up dots and dots and dots. But because we're in Photoshop, I am rarely, if ever, stippling like this. It's usually only to do some detailed highlights or something like that, where I'm stippling individual stipples. So let me show you how I do this in Photoshop. And I demoed this in class, so hopefully you were paying attention, but if you were not, you can see here. So I right click on my brush, and down at the bottom of my brush there are some special effects brushes. And I like these splatter brushes. They're really good for creating stipple effects. So you can see that these splatter brushes are already sort of doing stipples for me. And it's so much faster than doing individual stipples. Now you have to fiddle with the brush to get the stipples to the right size that you want. Okay, and you might have different decisions based on what you're working with to do that. Okay, but once you decide on the size of the brush, then we can start stippling the lobster claw. Now there are some kind of difficult things. So we have to keep the stipples inside the lines. That's one of the important things of doing this properly. So if the light's there, I'm going to stipple down here. One way we can do this, and this is the most inefficient way, but I find myself doing this quite a bit. Okay, one way to do this is to put in your stipples without worrying about getting in the lines, but rather more so worrying about the density. Okay, so kind of like this. And then coming back in with the eraser and individually erasing the regions where those stipples have gone. This is the most inefficient way to do it, but like I said, I find myself doing this a lot. I don't know if I just naturally sort of like to do this. It's kind of pleasing to erase the stipples in a sort of obsessive compulsive way of making things perfect. It's kind of fun. So what I would do is I would come in, erase from the teeth, erase inside of here. And if there's an issue like in here, it's going to get pretty tight, I would just decrease the size of my brush. Or zoom in to get that. So here I'm already sort of starting to contribute. And I would just continue this process. Okay. Let me show you the other way to do this, the most efficient way to do this. And So the most efficient way to do this is to press W, get your magic wand tool. Okay, that's over here. You might have to right click to grab it. And then you can on the layer that has your line drawing, you can click a closed shape and it will select that enclosed shape. And then make sure that you go up to the layer that you want your stipples on. And then when you actually do the stipples, they only appear in the region that you have selected. Okay, so this is probably the most efficient way to do this, is to select the region. Now, you're going to encounter some problems when you do this. Let me show you the problem you're going to encounter all the time. If in your line drawing there is a break in the line, imagine there was a break in the line and you try to grab the magic wand tool, you're going to select all the white area on the page. Okay, this is probably the most common problem, is people try to select a shape not realizing that that actual shape has been not completed. It's not tightly closed. It has to be tightly closed for the algorithm to be able to select inside of the shape.